organization for the Africa Climate Collaborative. The collaborative, comprising University of Cambridge, University of Cape Town, University of Ghana, and Makerere University, stands at a critical moment in terms of implementation. Last year, we held a foundational workshop in Accra, where we established a shared vision. We sought to craft some critical shifts and strategic roadmap that the collaborative must follow as we transition from strategic planning to implementation at scale. And this year, we have a befitting theme: from ambition to action, scaling African youth-led climate solutions. Now, the first half indicates that we are journeying together. And there's an African proverb that says that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So in the collaborative, we are going together, and we are learning lessons for the implementation of the collaborative. The 2026 convening, from ambition to action, is designed to really catalyze this transition, building from strategic co-creation to robust operationalization. And we believe that this gathering sets the tone to ratify the core frameworks that we have jointly crafted, to accelerate joint initiatives, and to also solidify internal architecture that is required to really occasion the impact that we so much want to elicit. This convening is strategic because it provides us the opportunity to align our efforts and help us to finalize the foundational tools that will help us to strengthen the partnership, which is at the very core of this collaborative. It also creates the opportunity for us to showcase the collaborative's initial impact across university partners, and it will provide a dynamic platform for peer learning, knowledge sharing, and strategic engagement with our key stakeholders, particularly the youth, who must be at the forefront and at the center of everything that we do. We know Africa is the youngest continent, and so this is very important. We have three mutually reinforcing aims. First, we seek to strengthen institutional alignment and operational foundations, where we are building a shared understanding of program outlines across partner universities. And then the second one is to also deepen understanding of cross-cutting activities and opportunities that will help us to accelerate our efforts across program work streams. And then finally, we seek to catalyze learning, visibility, and ecosystem mobilization. This will entail tracking early insights, lessons, and success stories that emerge from the program implementation, and then we can also scale out in terms of learning and insights for the collaborative. We are happy to be here in Kenya. So I say, habari za asubuhi, mwamkaji, mimi salama. Yes, so we are starting our day one, and day one we are talking about institutional progress and strategic alignment. And here we are taking stock of what we have done from across our institutions, identifying emerging opportunities and challenges that will help us to strengthen what we are doing, and then accelerate the impact that we want to occasion as part of the collaborative. This session, we have opening remarks. And the first to do that for us will be the team from the University of Ghana. I'll give a brief introduction. They will come and then also deliver their speech. They have very extensive dossier, but I don't intend to read everything. So from the University of Ghana, we have the Professor Gordon Awandare, who is the Pro Vice Chancellor Academic. Professor Awandare is the founding director of the West African Center for Cell Biology, Infectious Pathogens, and a professor of biochemistry and cell and molecular biology at the University of Ghana. He is a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences and the Royal Society of Biology, also a visiting professor at Oxford Brookes University. Professor Awandare serves on several boards, and committees of international research networks, and is a recipient of a number of notable awards, including the Millennium Excellence Award in Biomedical Sciences and the Bailey K. Ashford Medal for outstanding contributions in tropical medical science. Professor Randari has extensive experience in university management, risk leadership, and governance. He serves as the PI for the University of Ghana's partnership under the Africa Climate Collaborative. I'll also read, I think we need to give him a round of applause. I'll read the super abridged dossier of Prof. Gordon as well, Chris Gordon, and then both of them will take their turn to address us. Prof. Chris Gordon is the founding director of the Institute for Environment and Sanitation Studies at the University of Ghana. He is an environmental scientist with interest in climate change adaptation, environmental degradation, and biodiversity loss. He has served as the Dean of International Programs and the founding director for the Institute of Environment and Sanitation Studies. Prof. Gordon was the executive vice president of the International Society of Limnology and vice president of Wetlands International. Currently, he is an ambassador of the Earth Commission of Future Earth and a member of the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, multidisciplinary expert group. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome each of them in turn.
Good morning. Karibu. So, on behalf of the University of Ghana, it's a great pleasure to welcome all of you to this second convening of the Africa Climate Collaborative. We were honored to be selected or nominated to be the first chair of the collaborative and to lead the stewardship team for 1 year. I think that was likely because our project was the first to be approved. It's not that we have any special skills in chairing, but probably because ours was the first to be approved and we started implementation first. But it's been our privilege to lead the group and to play our role in moving the discussions forward since last year. I think the first thing that we would like to do is to free you from one common confusion between the two of us, our names. I'm sure when you were looking at the program, you saw two names, but both of them had a Gordon in them, and you were wondering whether somebody and the brother, somebody and the son, or are they twins, you know? So let's free you from that first. Chris and I are not related at all, as you can see. We don't look alike. But Chris is my senior brother in the university, and he even taught me when I was a student. So he's really our senior brother in the Ghana team. But the name confusion is because he has foreign heritage, so his surname is Gordon. I just picked the Gordon from somewhere. My parents gave it to me, right? So my first name is Gordon, and his last name is Gordon. And because my surname is more difficult to pronounce, some people often just call me Prof. Gordon. You know, trying to be polite, they call me Prof. Gordon. And then that creates confusion because he's really Prof. Gordon. I'm Prof. Awandari. Anyway, so to make it easy for everybody, just call me Gordon and call him Chris. Okay? Yeah? So you don't need to add professor or whatever, because we are not here as professors. We are here as your friends and your teammates. We are all in the same team. So just call me Gordon. Call him Chris, and there will be no confusion, okay? And remember that Chris is the bigger one. Yeah? All right, thank you. So when we met last year, I think a lot of things were uncertain. Even the programs, I think at that time, it's only UG that had started implementation. Makerere had just been approved, I think, and Cape Town was nearing approval. AAU had just come on board, and they were supposed to guide us, but they were as confused as we were. They were trying to also find their level. In fact, even the MasterCard Foundation officers themselves were not too clear about what we were going to do. I think Tulitu had joined not too long before that meeting. So there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of, grabbing of ideas. In fact, at that time, I don't think we even had settled on a name, right? We had no name. There was discussion about logo. There was really no logo. There was a broad vision, but there was still some tweaking to be done. Objectives and what we wanted to shift, the strategic shifts that we're seeking, all these things were still in flux. Since then, a lot has happened, very positively, through the regular meetings that we've had, both at the full collaborative level, stewardship team, comms working group, and all the other working groups that have been meeting. A lot of progress has been made. We got a name nailed down. We got a logo written in pen. And even some of the communications assets started to take shape, right? So on that front, a lot of progress had been made. In addition, the stewardship team had brought much more clarity to the overall vision and strategy objectives of the collaborative. So we've seen a lot of learning and co-creation over the last year, and it has been very inspiring. And it has brought us closer together. We have gotten to know each other more. We have learned a lot from each other, and we have shared ideas across the partners. I think all the programs are now in implementation. They build teams, so we have a bigger pool of people here today than the last time. And the foundation itself has gotten more clarity on what they want from this collaborative and how we are all going to work together. I think this convening then provides the opportunity for us to finalize many of the discussions that we're having online. We hope to leave here having agreed on exactly what we seek to approve and to achieve, and how we're going to achieve that. Another important thing we need to really understand and nail down is the monitoring and evaluation, how we are going to measure impact, what counts and what doesn't count. These are critical things that we need to get out of this meeting. And then, of course, we are going to continue learning from each other. We're also going to learn from other stakeholders who have been invited here to share their experiences. And hopefully, we would leave here all richer than we came. We hope to deepen our collaborations among the partners. We hope to strengthen the linkages that we've been building. And we hope that overall we'll leave here as a more unified team with a single purpose. We also are giving a lot more voice to the youth in this meeting. And I think that's a great thing. if you look around, many climate initiatives that are coming up, led by various funding agencies. You know, we've seen Gates, we've seen EDCTP. Welcome is doing one which is very similar to this. They are establishing climate collaboratives in East Africa, Western Africa, and Southern Africa. And the objectives are quite similar to ours. What makes this unique is a focus on youth. And I believe that that is a key strength of this collaborative, and why this collaborative is likely to deliver more sustainable impact than the others, because we're going to be empowering the youth. And if you empower the youth, it means that the impact would last for a very long time. So, distinguished colleagues, we are very pleased to be meeting here again. We hope that the next few days we would enjoy very fruitful and productive conversations, and we leave here all re-energized and hopeful for a very impactful climate collaborative implementation. At this point, I want to invite Chris to say a few words about what the stewardship team will be doing at this convening. I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Gordon, for these kind remarks. We work under the leadership of our project director, and you will notice that both myself as deputy in charge of technical and Adelina in charge of operational, we are wearing MasterCard Foundation colors. It's not accidental. It's a very common thing in Ghana to have branded fabric. And at some point in time, I hope that we'll have not just a T-shirt, but branded African print for this particular project. I would like to start off from the point which I think is key, that is the MasterCard Foundation core values, which I call CLITCH. They arrange the words differently, but I like acronyms you can speak. And we have this focus on youth. That makes this different. But the fundamental values of the MasterCard Foundation are kindness and respect, listening, impact, co-creation, and humility. We should never forget that is what defines this particular initiative as compared to the others. This is something that is different. The journey from Accra to Nairobi has been not difficult, but as they say in China, interesting. And I would like to, I work a lot with water, and we use canoes when we go out. So we started off with a canoe with 4 places in it. But it was only Cambridge which had an oar, because they had something happening. We had the coxswain, the oversight, that was AAU, who at that time didn't know where we were going. The other units were now, they had a place, they knew they had a place, but they could not sit in their seat yet because they had no contract, or contract was being signed or whatever. But now we have a fully manned, is that correct now? Can we say manned? Oh, what do we say? Crewed, thank you. A fully crewed canoe with AAU, we steer in Ghana from the back. That's where we'll direction. But everybody now has an oar. What we now have to do with the guidance of AAU is to make sure that we row together. Because if we don't, we'll just be going around in circles. We have to have a clear destination that we are going to go to, which I think is also clear, apparent. In the discussions that Gordon referred to, we had some areas that are common or agreed, that is capacity strengthening. Thank you. Yesterday during the comms, the whole knowledge translation thing came out very strongly. The need for linkage, networking, the clear research direction, and the need to have community public engagement. These shared common goals, is it me who's, okay, it's working now, are what define us. And what we're going to try and do at this convening is to have a clearer understanding of what these goals are. And when I look around the room, we have a lot of extremely experienced, I was going to say capable, but I can't determine that. I can just say experienced people here who know how projects work in practice. And that experience of knowing what makes a project work and what makes a project fail will be critical in defining the next 6 years that we have. Given that the Accra was basically the exploration or reconnaissance, now we know where and what we want to do. So it's for us now to clearly define our respective roles, and in that, try to build in the change of baton, because it is the young people who are going to benefit. It is the young people who need to take up the mantle of how things move beyond 2032. Because this is a project. We are looking for sustainability in the thought processes, sustainability in the principles that underpin this program, this project, and how we can upscale and outscale. Yesterday, the Secretary General mentioned the fact that they want this program to expand to other universities in Africa. I think that's a very laudable aim. I think the approach we are using, bringing in young people, is slightly discriminatory as a person approaching 70, but it's okay. Yeah. It's, the youth are our future. That's why we old people, we are the past. Thank you. But there's a program called realage.com. When you enter your vitals, it tells you your real physiological age. When I was 50, I put in my vitals, it told me I was 87. Anyway, on a more serious note, we need to create a structure that is so robust in terms of the thought that has gone into developing this initiative, that is, it is an obvious choice for other universities to follow in terms of looking at climate resilience and sustainability. We have to always remember that that was the original focus, climate resilience and sustainability. The text has not changed. The name may have changed, but the underlying philosophy has not changed. So when you're looking at resilience, you're looking at communities. When you're looking at sustainability, you're looking at things far beyond the SDGs. You're looking at how do we generate the evidence that can be moved into policy, into practice. So you're looking at high-level research. You're looking at research that is relevant to our various countries. You're looking at finding the best young minds to nurture without closing them off. Let them not have boxes in their mind. So thinking outside the box, they ask, what is a box? Because they've never considered narrowing their mind into little silos. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I wish you all a fantastic meeting. I'm hoping that all the expectations that I think somebody is going to ask us will be satisfied by the end of the meeting, and we go to the next convening after this with a clearer focus and direction of where the Africa Climate Collaborative will take us. Thank you very much.
We thank the University of Ghana, the chair of the collaborative, for that insightful presentation, whetting our appetite for more. Now we are going to move into the first keynote address, which is Climate Smart Innovations for Societal Impact, the role of youth and gender groups. We have a distinct personality to deliver this for us, Elizabeth Watuti of the Green Generation Initiative. Elizabeth Watuti is a Kenyan environmental and climate activist and founder of the Green Generation Initiative, a youth-led organization that nurtures environmental consciousness and climate action among young people and communities across Africa. She founded the Green Generation Initiative in 2016 to address environmental challenges such as deforestation, climate change, and environmental degradation through education, through tree growing, and community-led restoration initiatives. Her organization works with schools, youth, and local communities to promote environmental stewardship. This is very important, environmental stewardship, climate resilience, and sustainable livelihoods. Elizabeth is widely recognized for her advocacy for youth inclusion in climate action and has represented young people at major global platforms, including the UN Climate Change Conferences, the COPs. Her work focuses on amplifying African youth voices in global climate policy spaces and advancing locally driven solutions to environmental challenges. And we know one of the work streams talks about policy, networking. So this is very important. Elizabeth has received multiple international recognitions for her leadership in environmental conservation, including awards linked to youth climate action and sustainability leadership. Through her work, she continues to champion intergenerational and community-based approaches to restoring ecosystems and promoting a greener future. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Elizabeth Watuti.
Good morning, everyone. I think I might step aside for some few minutes because I was hoping to have a short video played and then I can give my keynote. All right. So I was not sure if I should wait or come.
Longer a distant threat. But within this challenge lies an opportunity to restore, to rebuild, and to rethink how we live with nature. At Green Generation Initiative, we are restoring ecosystems and empowering communities through nature-based solutions. In schools, we are doing more than just planting trees. We are teaching the young people how to grow and take care of them, turning school compounds into greener, cooler, and more productive spaces. Beyond schools, we work alongside farmers and communities to restore degraded land, supporting them to grow food and rebuild the health of their soil. Across landscapes, from forests to water catchments, we are protecting the natural systems that sustain everyday life. And along the coast, we are working with women and young people to restore ecosystems and rebuild livelihoods. Beyond our borders, across Africa, we are equipping young leaders with the knowledge, skills, platforms, and funding to scale their innovations and drive climate action for today and tomorrow. Climate change is not just an environmental issue. It is a food issue, water issue, and a livelihood issue. That is why we invest in people. Each tree we plant is not just an act of restoration. It is a commitment to resilient ecosystems, food security, and a future where people and nature thrive together. Impact is therefore not measured by the number of trees planted, but by the number that grow, thrive, and sustain life. Together, we are restoring landscapes, strengthening communities, and growing a greener, more resilient future.
Thank you. Once again, good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Wathuti. I am the founder and the CEO of the Green Generation Initiative. I am a Kenyan. I am a daughter of the soil, and I'm deeply honored to be joining you here today at the opening of this convening. So often, people ask me if there is hope in a world full of challenges, shifting geopolitics, and mounting uncertainties. And this is a question that a lot of young people are always asked. Do you think there is hope? And most times people say that young people give us hope. And for me, I say, I believe there is hope, but not the naive kind of hope that waits for someone else to act. No, I believe in the hope that grows from action, from what we do at the ground, from how we address the challenges that we see today. The hope I have seen in the eyes of children planting fruit trees to nourish themselves and to green their schools. And the hope that I've seen in the hands of women conserving water catchment areas and building their own resilience to the impact of the climate crisis. And the hope that I've seen in young people across the African continent who refuse to accept the world as it is and decide and choose to do something about it from their communities, from the country, the continent, and around the world. And that is the energy I bring into this room today, the hope that actually comes from action. You've all come here today from different institutions and some of the most prestigious universities on this continent and beyond. And I believe you are the people that shape and can shape what the next generation knows, believes, and is capable of doing. And that is responsibility. And today I want to speak more to that responsibility. For those of you who come from Kenya or who've been to Kenya multiple times and have been around, you've probably been to Kenya's most forested region, which is across the Mount Kenya region. I personally grew up there, and it's one of Kenya's most forested regions. And as I grew up, I remember the rivers were running clear and fast. They were not polluted. They were and the farmlands were also so generous. There was enough to eat, to store, and even surplus to take to the market. And our forests also were so generous with the canopies and the beauty that nature brings when it's untouched at its most pristine. I watched forests being cleared over time, and I also walked into forests where I used to play among trees as a child and found tree stumps and tree logs where once lived a canopy that was beautiful that I could see and enjoy each and every day. I also watched rivers that flowed fast, not flowing in the same speed anymore, and others running dry to an extent where there was no enough water to drink or to grow the harvest in our farms. And even more across the country and across Africa, I watched families go hungry because the land could no longer give what it once gave. Now that contrast between what was and what is and what is supposed to be at the moment is what turned me into who I am today, and what turned me into doing the work that I do today, the work that you've just watched in the small documentary. That observation that the world my generation inherited and is living in today is already being diminished, and so much more is happening and changing every day, and each time that people don't come together to take the right solutions and the right actions that are required to address these challenges. I was inspired by the great Professor Wangari Maathai, the great Nobel laureate who we all know of. And through her actions, she taught us that ordinary people taking small actions together can change an entire landscape, an entire country, an entire continent, and the globe at large. And at just the tender age of 7, when she was the member of parliament in my home region, I had an opportunity to plant my first tree. And fast forward in 2016, as a first-year student in the university, I founded the Green Generation Initiative, which is now an action-driven organization where we go beyond implementing climate solutions on the ground and restoring degraded water catchment areas to also understanding what it actually takes to scale these solutions across Africa, across the globe, while showcasing impact. Because when you showcase impact and show what is working, people can be able to resonate and people can be able to also take actions. Now, the reality today is we all know that the climate crisis is now a lived reality for so many communities. And despite the African continent contributing to just about 4% of the global emissions, Africa remains the continent that suffers the most from climate change. And there's a particular cruelty in the numbers because young Africans, people my age and younger, are actually 3.5 times more likely to be displaced by climate change than the global average. And I believe it is important that we speak about this because I think we cannot build the right solutions until we are honest about the scale of what we are facing and what exactly needs to change. Africa remains the continent of the future because Africa has the youngest and fastest growing population globally that is also set to double to 2.5 billion by 2050. And what does this mean? This means that Africa is going to define the labor and consumption patterns around the world in a very big way. At the same time, 60% of Africa's population is actually below the age of 25. And in sub-Saharan Africa, that number goes higher, and we have about 70% below the age of 35. Now, this is the greatest asset this continent has ever had. We speak about so many things that the African continent has, but I still believe that the young population is the greatest asset that the African continent has ever had. And the young people are building and implementing homegrown solutions that are ready to scale. We just need to scale them by investing in them. Throughout our work at the Green Generation Initiative, we kept seeing a pattern and a challenge where young people across Africa with incredible, viable, market-tested climate solutions were struggling to scale their work. Not because their ideas were bad, but because they are stuck in what we call the valley of death stage. They're said to have grown past the microgrants, and they're also too early or too small for institutional investors and venture capital. And the truth is, most of the solutions, initiatives, and innovations of young Africans are still stuck at this stage. So we built the Africa's Next Green Leaders Accelerator to address that exact gap. And through the Africa's Next Green Leaders Accelerator, which we call ANGO, we are already accelerating Africa's next innovators, ventures, and leaders that will champion partnerships that promote nature and people-centered green transition. And I'm so pleased to see Prima Facie Mutua here, who was part of our first cohort, who is the founder of Mtaka. And yeah. We believe that mobilizing and aligning funding to tackle barriers in access to finance and building stronger accelerator investment pipelines and also promoting new financial instruments that work for African context and climate priorities is what is going to make Africa contribute better to the global transition agenda. Now, in our pilot alone for the Africa's Next Green Leaders Accelerator, with over 5,000 applications, 21 ventures across 11 countries that made it to the cohort, and with just 40,000 USD in capital, in catalytic capital, we are already seeing a projected 4 times leverage in follow-on funding, which tells us that there is an opportunity to actually ensure that we can support the initiatives and innovations that are at the valley of death stage to actually leapfrog and continue to make a great impact at scale. Now, what must we do for those of us in this room? I know I'm standing in front of people who run and shape institutions, universities, and I want to speak to you directly today because I know you hold something that most young climate innovators desperately need. There's the credibility, we have networks, access to funding mechanisms, research infrastructures, and the ability to legitimize solutions that the market has not yet recognized. And the question today is, are you already using that power for them? I know we are teaching sustainability across our institutions, but the other question is, are our institutions also designed to find the next green leaders who are innovating and give them the institutional weight to scale their work? There are 4 things that I'm asking of all who are in decision-making positions, institutions in this room today. And the first thing is, we have to embed climate entrepreneurship, whereby we build a curricula around real problems in real African communities. And let us not import frameworks from the global north and ask African students to apply them to African realities, because what we've seen is the context is different. And the solutions to that extent means they will also be different too. So it is important that they are homegrown and we understand what is actually happening at the local level. And the second is partner with accelerators to bridge the research gap. And this is not about universities becoming investors. This is about becoming the connectors, opening your networks, co-designing programs, and helping founders cross that valley of death. And the third is to also center women and gender equity. Across our work, working with women, young women in these communities, we've seen how women-led climate solutions have consistently demonstrated better community outcomes. And yet, women continue to face higher barriers to capital, to leadership, and to even visibility. So this is a call for us. Every fellowship, every scholarship, every grant, every accelerator slot must also reflect this, that we actually are putting and giving an opportunity to young people, to women, and young women as well within these spaces. And the fourth is, we must also stop working in silos. The climate crisis does not respect institutional boundaries. We have universities, governments, civil society, the private sector, development partners. We have to co-create the pathways collectively. Actually, we have to move resources, people, access, solutions already are. And in closing, I want us to reflect on our relationship with the earth, because I believe this is where the true seed of action lies within each and every one of us, from the different institutions that we are in our different leadership roles. I still believe the true seed of action has to come from deep within ourselves. Because the environment that we speak of today, it is not out there. I believe the environment is in us, and the environment is us. I believe that we are a part of nature and not apart from nature. And each of us has a contribution to make. The forests that we restore today are not separate from the communities that we heal and the communities that we work with every day. And the green economy that we talk about every day and build, it's not separate from the futures that we are going to give to our children. Everything is all connected. And right now we are at a moment in history where the decisions that are made in rooms like this one by people like you are going to determine whether Africa's youth-led climate revolution reaches the scale it needs to. And I personally believe that it will. Not because I'm optimistic in nature, but because I have seen it. I've held it and have watched it grow by being able to work with thousands and thousands of young people across the African continent. So the seeds that we plant today will become the forest our children will inherit. So let us plant boldly in every aspect that we are leading on, and in every decision that we are making, and in every action that we choose to make from this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So the video set the scene, and from there we know that when the last tree dies, the last man dies. She spoke about hope that emanates from action, in a sense that the youth are not just passive victims, but they are active agents of change. This is remarkable. And their actions are grounded in community-based initiative, which is also anchored in responsibility. She spoke about the linkage between the past, the present, and the future. And then alluded to the fact that small actions can culminate in giant sustainable solutions. The fact that Africans or young Africans are more than 3.5 times more likely to be displaced by climate change was also mentioned. But then the youth can be seen as a burgeoning opportunity or a ticking time bomb if we don't act in concert with the youth. She spoke about climate entrepreneurship, the need for us to integrate that in our curricula, talked about co-creation, co-designing, spoke about women and gender equity, also as pivotal actions that we need to also center stage as part of climate initiatives. And then she spoke about the environment in us and the environment that is us. I will sum it up as a keynote that dwelled on systems, not silos. Another round of applause for her. Now we move on to the second keynote address, which is on climate innovation and entrepreneurship, trends, gaps, and opportunities for higher education institutions. And to do that, the honors, we have Lindsay Holly Handler of Delta 40. I will proceed to read a brief about her, and then we can usher her in. Lindsay Handler is a seasoned entrepreneur and investor with over 23 years building and scaling impactful businesses in Africa. She is the founder and managing partner of Delta 40, a venture capital fund and venture studio backing innovative climate ventures. She also serves as a board director for Samfi, BioLite, and Giraffe Bioenergy, an operating partner at Equator, and a founding member of the Mission 300 Private Sector Council. So you can see her footprints in the venture capital space. Previously, Lindsay was CEO of Phoenix, a clean energy company delivering affordable power to millions across 9 countries, which was later acquired by Engie. With a round of applause, shall we welcome Lindsay Handler?
Hello, everyone. Habari yako? Webali, or Uliotia, I should say, for our folks from Makerere. Thank you so much to the Africa Climate Collaborative, to the MasterCard Foundation, and to the University of Cambridge for inviting me here today. It's such an honor to be here, and a topic I'm very passionate about. Also want to thank Elizabeth for her great presentation. So many of the things you talked about, I'll touch on a little bit today, the importance of investing in innovation and entrepreneurs on the front line, especially women, and new financial instruments for doing that. So I hope I can build off of this, that we can work together. You're doing incredible work. And just as we start, I'm going to test this out real quick, see if the clicker works. Perfect, great. So today, I was asked to speak a little bit about opportunities for investing in climate entrepreneurs. And so we have arranged 4 kind of topics. So one, just a little bit of the data behind the investment opportunities in the climate space, particularly youth-led climate entrepreneurship and investment opportunities in Africa. And then we'll do a couple case studies about how we've seen really practical approaches to helping youth get climate ventures off the ground, develop innovative products that change lives, scale them to multiple markets, and actually deliver returns to investors. And particularly the role that universities can play in that, because we're really excited to work even more closely with universities like Makerere, University of Cape Town, and Ghana in Africa. And so this is just the start, and I hope later today we can hear ideas from you about how we, investors and entrepreneur support organizations, can work more closely with you. So I'll just start my timer here. So to kick off, I'll just share some numbers. So Delta 40, we're called Delta 40 because by 2100, 40% of the world will live in Africa. It might be even more than that. And to us, that represents an incredible opportunity to start to invest in the talent that we believe will drive both innovation and the growth of the economy globally. This is going to be one of the most important talent markets in the world by 2100. And if we start now and build the foundations, we believe that we can create great innovations and great jobs in Africa. And one other note is that we're called Delta because the earliest innovations in the climate space, in energy, ag, and mobility, were actually created in the deltas of the Nile River. And so, if we think about humanity, a lot of innovation started here in Africa, and we think there's an opportunity to, with the right capital, the right partnerships, to actually, bring back more innovation ecosystems and support for this talent that's going to be growing on the continent. And you can see the green line is Africa. Asia is currently the largest market, but the population will be declining, and you can see that no other market compares to Africa in terms of the growth of talent. And I'm sure you've all seen the youth in Africa are the most entrepreneurial. A friend of mine was building an institution called ARIA in the UK. Is anyone familiar with ARIA? The Climate Innovation Institute in the UK. And a friend of mine who was in there said, look, we have billions of dollars. We don't have entrepreneurial talent. And I was like, in Africa, we have entrepreneurial talent and we need billions of dollars. And so we talked about how can we collaborate. So I think there's an incredible opportunity that you're all aware of. So just some of the numbers. This is venture capital and private equity only. But you can see that initially we started to see a real growth in investment in Africa, up to almost 5 billion in 2022 when interest rates globally were low. But that investment has come down a little bit as interest rates rose. We saw a little bit of a rebound, however, in 2025. So investment in Africa, innovation and startups went up 32% from 2024 to 2025. It is a little bit more concentrated in a smaller number of deals, however. If you look at where Africa is relative to Latin America and Asia, though, there's some really promising signs that the uptake of digital technology, smartphones, and fintech is really kind of on par with where Asia and Latin America were. And they must raise meaningful venture capital to support their innovation ecosystem. So how do we learn from these other regions is something we think a lot about at Delta 40. In Africa, fintech and digital services continue to dominate funding. When you go, next week is the Africa Venture Capital Association, and many of the venture capitalists and the private equity investors will be looking for fintech deals. And most of the exits and success from a financial standpoint have been in fintech. However, what you'll see in the middle here is there's a significant increase in 2025 in renewables and clean tech. It is almost overtaking fintech, and you see mobility also kind of increasing over time. Electric mobility, particularly with the war in Iran, will likely become a huge sector in Africa, and we're really excited about that. Sadly, I will say, agriculture is still a small part of this pie, and given the importance of employing youth, growing food, creating jobs, we need to increase that. You can see here a little bit more detail. The yellow is renewable energy. That is still a very big part of the pie, but it's decreasing. It was 67% in 2020, now only 33% because mobility has really taken the pie in the last year. Ag and food systems is still at only 10%. And I know this is a big part of MasterCard Foundation's work, and we really believe that we need to find ways, the right instruments to get more money flowing into innovation in ag and food because it's critical to climate and youth employment. Feeding not only this continent, but we believe Africa can feed the world if we do that right. We talked a little bit about this. So climate-focused solutions saw the highest funding growth year over year at 30%, so 3x more in 2025 than 2026. So this is an opportunity for all of us. Overall, most of the venture capital, however, is concentrated in about 4 to 5 of the big markets, Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, and South Africa, with a few others. We believe there's an opportunity to invest more in what we call the hungry markets. I'll talk about this in a minute, but I think Uganda, Senegal, Benin, Zambia, I think these are fantastic markets to be investing in, and we need to figure out more ways to get capital flowing into those markets as well. There have been some notable exits. So Phoenix International, my former company, we were acquired by a $70 billion energy company called Engie, and that created a great platform for growing, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Paystack was acquired by Stripe, and Uber came in and invested $100 million in an electric vehicle company out of Nigeria. These kinds of big global partnerships bring more capital and returns to the continent, and we need to see more of them. But there are gaps, and I'll talk a little bit about them. So in the venture capital space, in Nigeria, most venture capital goes to Nigerian founders. In Kenya, only 25% of venture capital goes to Kenyan founders, and that's lower in climate. Most of the venture capital is going to foreign founders in Kenya. We need to find ways to change that. It used to be 7% of venture capital in Africa in 2020 went to females. Here, 1.9%. The invest female founders is going dramatically. We need to change that. Female founders are actually outperforming male founders when it comes to profitability, but yet they're raising less capital. Debt is very expensive, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So here's a really, really big problem. It's very dorky, very data-driven, but it's really a big problem. So we looked at the cost of climate debt around the world, and even in regions with the same credit rating by the World Bank and the IFC, like let's say Bolivia has the same credit rating as Uganda, the cost of debt in Uganda is 30% and the cost of debt in Bolivia is 24%. This is prohibiting climate companies from succeeding because climate companies especially are very capital intensive. It's not an app. We can't improve everything with an app. We need to invest capital, but if the cost of debt is 30% prohibitive for most companies, prohibitive to get venture capital. So if there's one thing I believe that we need to change is we need to bring the cost of debt down for all of these entrepreneurs and economies. And that's something we'd love your thoughts on as well. And so then we looked at, this is a collaboration we did with the Rocky Mountain Institute, which is one of the great climate think tanks in the United States, has put a lot of time in supporting climate entrepreneurs. In fact, their venture studio supported 100 companies, and those companies went on to raise $4 billion. And what they did was they mapped out the valleys of death that climate entrepreneurs face. So the first one is kind of in incubation. There's a startup formation between the idea and the concept validation. Then we have product development valley of death. You need money to develop hardware solutions. You need real money, not small grants. You need real money to do that, and there's a valley of death there. Then in market validation, there's another commercialization, there's another valley of death. So we look at these valleys of death and think a lot about how do we help practically and efficiently, how do we help entrepreneurs through here? And this is where I think we can work with universities. Because if we understand the valleys of death that these entrepreneurs are going through, especially 1 and 2, startup formation and product development, I think the universities can help with that. And then I think the venture studios and the venture capitalists can help with number 3 and number 4. So I'd love your thoughts on these valleys of death, what you're doing and what we can do together to help innovators through these valleys of death. So I was very lucky, as the MC said, I was very lucky to be here for 24 years building and investing in companies on the ground in Africa. I've lived in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and I've built companies in Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Mozambique, Zambia. I've been very lucky to be across the continent. And one of the things I saw over all of those years is there were a few structural gaps to the incredible African youth to actually start companies. And so we built Delta 40 to address those gaps. And we look forward to working with partners like you. I'll tell you a little bit about the gaps we filled and how we did that. So we are both a studio and a fund in Africa that builds, invests in, and actually rolls up our sleeves to grow innovative ventures that improve livelihoods, create jobs, and drive planet positive growth. How do we do this? We find founders on the front lines who know the markets and the customers they're serving, and we invest in them. And then we provide hands-on support from product development to commercialization to fundraising to help them thrive. We invest in 3 spaces that I think are very much aligned with everyone here: clean energy and electric mobility, agriculture and food, and then the fintech, data, and AI that support those 2 sectors, so only embedded in those 2 sectors. And why do we do that? These sectors will drive the most economic growth and create the most jobs. They're not always the highest returns on investment. They're tough, they're capital intensive, but they have the greatest opportunity for creating economic growth and jobs, and that's why we focus on these. We aim to support 1,000 founders, invest directly in 50 ventures that in turn impact 20 million customers by 2030. And how do we do this? So we have developed a 3-prong model based on the gaps we see in the feedback from founders. So many funds just invest. They write, they do a lot of diligence, they invest, and then they sit on board. So they provide a little bit of post-investment support through the board. We decided to complement that with 2 big pillars. So first, we run innovation programs. So we pick a problem space or a sector where we want to invest in innovation, and we run Pan-African programs. We do call for proposals. So really tactical idea. We'd love to share those with all of you, so you can share them with your students. And we get the best ideas. We then map them, so we learn a lot about the ecosystem, and then we pick the top 20 to come into an innovation program, and we provide them with hands-on support, mini version of our venture studio for 1 year. We connect them with investors, and we get them investment ready. We then have a fund that can lead investment. So one of the biggest issues African founders have faced is they can't find a lead investor. There's lots of people willing to write a follow-on check, but finding that lead who will do the diligence, write the terms, do the legals, it's very expensive for the size of the check. So you need a lot of impact funding to do this. But we do lead investments, and to date, whenever we've led an investment, 5.5x our investment comes into that round. We share our diligence materials with other investors. We can help them raise equity, debt, and grants behind us. So for every dollar we've invested, our companies have raised 5.5. So one thing we need in each of your markets, in Uganda, Ghana, we need lead investors that can get it going for your students. Then there is a lot of money that will pile in, but very little lead investors. The last pillar is we offer venture studio support. So for 2 to 5 years after our investment, they can access our studio, which includes shared CFO. These young entrepreneurs, they need a CFO from day one. You're all shaking your head, yes. But it's too expensive for them to access it. So we have a shared that will support our whole portfolio, and then we have additional controllers that will help them have very good books. It's a simple thing, very simple thing, but very impactful. We also have a shared chief commercial officer that helps on our revenue and need HR and talent and recruiting support, and we also help them think about expansion into new markets or new product fields. We also help them set up a board. Every company has a board. So these are the areas we support them with, and we do that. We earn common stock. So an idea for the universities too, if you want to support entrepreneurs, but you need to make that successful, universities can earn equity in the companies you help support. And that later can turn into money to continue to support your innovation programs. And so I'm happy to talk more about how we do that. But all of our support, we earn common equity in the company. We don't ask them for fees. And if they're successful, we put that back in to support more entrepreneurs later. Here's just a little bit of data on the venture studio model. What you'll see is that companies in studios or support systems, they raise money 50% faster and they exit 30% faster. On the right is one of the most important graphs I ever found, or data sets. Investors who invest in support after the investment see a 33% net IRR on their investments relative to investors who provide no support at 22%. That's including the cost of the support. So there's data saying if we invest in supporting entrepreneurs, we can make more money. So I'll just show you, this is our portfolio. I'm really proud to share that we've supported 100 founders, all African founders, 50% women in our innovation programs to date. And these are 16 of the companies we have directly invested in across energy, agriculture, mobility, all led by African and female founders on the front lines in Africa. Happy to talk more about that. So I'll just talk briefly about Stanford. I was very lucky to do my undergraduate degree at Stanford, and many people know it's kind of like it's a thriving innovation ecosystem. You cannot go to Stanford without thinking about starting a business, at least once. Not everybody does, but it really encourages innovation, and I was lucky to study social entrepreneurship. That was actually my undergraduate degree. And I think social entrepreneurship would be a great degree to bring to a lot of your universities. We did some research ahead of this to see what is it about Stanford that helped them kind of build the Silicon Valley ecosystem. Well, we think the most innovative and successful ecosystems have three pillars: universities, industry, and government working together, not necessarily formally, but what we kind of call intentionally. Right? They're intentionally thinking about how to bring these three pieces together. And we think that, universities like Stanford and Berkeley in the Bay Area have played a really key role in this innovation ecosystem in two ways. One, they support the development of new research, like innovative IP. And one of the things that I think is so important is they allow professors and students within the university to work in these companies to help them continue to commercialize. So a lot of my friends are part-time at Stanford, part-time at startup companies. And this ecosystem does not support that. Not just, the VCs will say, you must be full-time in your company. And I'm saying, but we need IP. We need that to come to the university. So I've been talking with venture capitalists about let the researchers be part-time. Let them develop universities get a equity with the VCs. And let's allow, and that's the one single idea that I think we need to take from Silicon Valley to Africa. Allow your professors. I have a couple academics that came through our innovation programs, but they were afraid to leave their full-time job at the university to lose their benefits and their tenure track to come into a startup. So what if we allowed everyone to do 25% in the startup space, and then the universities can have part of that IP? I think that's one idea we'd love to hear from you on. And so also, the talent at Stanford then goes and works for these companies. So I graduated in 2004, the year of Facebook launched publicly. Many of my classmates went to Facebook. Many of them are billionaires, just software engineers that are billionaires today. And those friends of mine are the LPs in the Delta 40 Fund 1. They have invested in our funds. So I think that if we can get the startups going and then get the young talent coming out of your universities to work there for equity, we all work to make some exits. You can really create what we call the innovation flywheel that we need to see, where successful founders are the ones funding the next companies, where university equity success goes to fund the next innovation programs. So we really think we should get that flywheel going. Working more closely together. So Stanford founders have started 366 of the world's unicorns, and then 268 have connections. And like I said, many of these folks have left these companies and are in Africa. They're giving back, they're investing, they're building new companies. The Stanford and East Africa Association is massive. So how do we leverage these guys to also invest in our businesses is an opportunity I see. So I'm going to keep moving through here. So some lessons: how do we design the ecosystem deliberately? How do we make failure safe? The one thing I want to say too is that I think I looked at the research. Only 20% of companies that are started get to a seed round, and only 26% of those get to an A. That means the majority, 90% of companies fail, but that's okay. And I think when we have grant-funded programs, we're afraid to say 90% failed. But I think that's okay. We need to be more comfortable with failure. Talent is absolutely the engine, and I'll talk about it in my next case study, but who here is from University of Makerere? Okay, so in my last company, I hired over 1,000 University of Makerere graduates, and it is absolutely the reason for our success. So I'll talk a little bit about how what you're doing to build the talent for these startups is critical. So I'll just spend very brief time talking about the Phoenix experience. In 2009, I was living in Kakamega, Kenya, investing in micro enterprises. So I was investing in micro and small enterprises, debt and grants, and we did 10,000 micro enterprise investments. And one of the things I noticed is all of the micro enterprise had no energy and spent more money on energy than we did in the United States. So it wasn't that they couldn't afford energy. Thank you for the timer, I see it. 10 minutes to go, thank you. It wasn't that they couldn't afford modern energy. They were actually spending more on kerosene, diesels, and generators to power their business than we would spend in America with modern energy. Probably 5 to 10 times more on energy. So I actually went back to Stanford. There's many solar companies that came out of Stanford. And we kind of put our heads together and said, could we redesign a solar system for African small micro enterprises and households and deliver power cheaper than what they're spending on kerosene and diesel? That was the goal. And we designed what is called the Phoenix Power System, this yellow system, designed in and for Africa with initially some engineers from Apple. And our mission was to improve the quality of life of our customers through inclusive energy and financial services. We started the engineering in San Francisco. We had a team of 15, all former Apple firmware engineers, hardware engineers, software engineers. But the product was too expensive. We spent 3 years and about $2 million developing it, and honestly, it just did not sell. It was too expensive for Africa. So we made a very big decision, and I wanted to share this with you all today. It's very tough decision at the time, but we made the decision to move all of our engineering from San Francisco to Kampala. And we put our headquarters in Kampala, Uganda. We hired 30 hardware engineers, all from Makerere, I'm sure, 90%. 30 software engineers. The only thing we kept in California was firmware engineering. We designed this new, expandable, affordable solar system from Uganda. We brought over a couple CTO-like mentors from Silicon Valley to keep the quality high, to train this generation. But I'm really happy to say that today, the director of product at ENGIE, making tens of millions of solar home systems a year, is Ugandan. So a lot of, I believe, hardware and software innovation can be done on the continent for the continent with the right systems in place. And we took that from Uganda, 1 market, 5 employees, 250 users in 2011. We partnered with MTN to get a good brand behind us to help us with distribution, keep our costs low. In 2018, we were in 6 markets across Africa, west, east, and south, with 2.5 million users and 1,100 full-time employees, 5,000 commission-based sales agents around these markets. And we hit a roadblock. We needed to raise about $100 to $200 million, and there wasn't the capital that was available on the continent. But a large French energy company called Engie saw some synergies, and they decided to fully acquire Phoenix, and we built a plan to take the company to 20 million customers, 20 countries by 2030. 2025, Phoenix is now in 12 markets with 18 million users and 2,000 full-time employees. It's actually just been rebought by another company, so it's going through another life. But if you look at this picture, there was 500 full-time employees in Uganda alone. So when we think about the youth-led climate revolution, I think, 1, we can invest in micro enterprises, but 2, we can build Pan-African companies that employ tens of thousands of people. Climate is human-powered. Any climate innovation is actually human-powered. So how do we create good jobs? And so we took people directly out of Makerere. We didn't require any work experience. We provided training. We had a system where they could come in, customer experience, go to sales, go to ops. There was a lot of rotations. And this is if there's one thing today that I'm excited about, how do we work together to create the innovations, get them to scale, and then employ all of these youth in these companies. I'm really proud to say that after all of my employees at Phoenix had equity, 100%. Just the engineers, the guards, the cleaners, they all, so when we sold, they all got a payout. Another thing you can do in your university is encourage the entrepreneurs to give equity to their employees, because that's what creates this flywheel. So after we sold the company, Phoenix alumni, there's over 50 businesses that came out of the exit run by Phoenix alumni. You can see some of them here, some of the biggest climate ventures, Bossego, Ignite, Installer, PowerUp. These are all founded and funded by Phoenix alum. And then there's dozens of micro enterprises and SMEs that came out of it as well. So how do we support iterative innovation, scaling partnerships, bring catalytic capital and speed to get these innovations off the ground? We would love to partner with you. So first, Delta 40 would love to share research and commercial opportunities with each other so that we can see where we can come in and support your entrepreneurs, where you want to see more investment. You're seeing a lot of IP developed, but no checks written. We want to hear from you. I really believe in fellowships programs. So simply giving researchers stipends. It's one of the things that Stanford does left, right, and center. It's one very inexpensive. Cover living costs for a year for one of your researchers who want to start a business. That alone, it could be $25,000. It could be $100,000. That's game changing. We'd love to partner with you on that. We can find philanthropists to support that. And internship programs. So when your folks are coming out of university, how do we put them in a really well-run startup so they see how it's run and then they can then go do it themselves? A couple years in a venture-backed startup is great experience. So I will wrap up now. We had just a couple ideas for how the universities can work with us in the broader ecosystem to create this flywheel. So we believe a thriving innovation ecosystem isn't just a collection of startups and investors. It's an interconnected system of people, institutions, capital, and culture with a shared goal and partnerships that enable ideas to rapidly, we do need speed, move from MVP and idea to adoption at scale. And so we work together, and you'll see Delta 40 tomorrow. We have a convening space where people can come together, and we just think bringing these people together regularly and seeing what spontaneous collisions can lead to is important. So a couple of final ideas. How do we learn about you and your priorities and where you see the opportunities so we can support you? So we'd love to have a follow-up with all of you. How do we think about technology transfer? I know you're all sitting on a lot of IP that was developed by the researchers and the technical side without the commercial ideas. We might have commercial teams that would love to take these to market. How do we do technology transfer in a win-win way? How do we do active spin-out support? This is probably the one I'm most passionate about. If you have people that have developed a product and a little bit of testing with customers and they're ready to spin out, how do we make sure they have a place to land that has money, meaningful capital, and support? Founder stipends and sabbaticals, like I said, and it can't be 3 months. There's a lot of programs that are 90 days. Nobody can build a business in 90 days. We need 1 to 2 years, and sometimes 10 years. How do we create real incubators that work? There's a phenomenal researcher who is Kenyan in the UK, I was telling the team about, that has actually studied African incubators and has lessons learned about what didn't work and how do we improve them. I'd love to share that with you all. But how do we build incubators that work? I think we need Incubator 2.0. Accelerator 2.0. We need a new model. How do we help you set up funds to actually invest in your companies and get equity in your companies? And I think you can earn it both through sweat of university support as well as some capital. How do we do challenge partnerships? This is really big. So the big car and energy companies in the US go to the universities and say, we need this product. How do we make those connections between corporate innovation needs and universities and support that process? And finally, how do we help the alumni networks? Your alumni that are successful, how do we help them come back and support these new ventures with technology, talent, and actual capital? So imagine a world where your students have the space and the capital and the time to develop new innovative IP. They have a place to go right after to test that, bring it to customers, work through the tough stuff, build a team, raise their first rounds of capital with support. We take 10% of those to Pan-African scale, and then the capital we need for growth, just like PayPal. PayPal was one of the successful early companies that has effectively funded about 200 other ventures. SpaceX, Tesla, they were funded by the returns of PayPal. So how do we create this flywheel where Africa doesn't have to go outside for capital, but the successful investors, universities, and talent just come back and fund the next wave of innovation in 2030, 2040. So I look forward to learning more from you today, hearing your ideas, your feedback, and thank you so much for having me.
Another round of applause for Lindsay. So we've just heard that the African continent is a beehive of activity in terms of climate innovation. And we need to look at where we fit and how we can leverage all the resources for our common good. There are a few highlights that by 2100, by which time some of us will not be here, 40% of the world will live in Africa. This is indeed an immense opportunity. And we learned that Africa is not just the cradle of civilization, but also the bedrock of innovation, where innovation began in the Nile Delta. She spoke about venture capital, private equity, the transition from 1.4 billion in 2019 to 2025, where it's over 3 billion. A number of opportunities exist, especially in the area of renewables, investment opportunities and gaps. She highlighted a number of them. But then we see there's a density or a over-concentration of the opportunities in few markets. Mentioned Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Uganda, and a few others. And then, despite the fact that women funders or female funders are very promising, they didn't get much support. This is something that requires intentionality to really reverse this systematic inequity. She spoke about 4 valleys of death. Those 4 valleys relate to where the organizations or the startups are formed. At the acceleration stage, we also see another 2 valleys of death: product development and market validation. And then the final one is when we talk about profitability and deployment. But then it is not all doom and gloom. She spoke about the Delta 40 integrated venture studio model. And I think we are privileged because at the bottom left corner, she said confidential. Some of you may have noticed it. I pay attention to details, so I see those things. So I saw it at the bottom left corner, confidential. So we are privileged people to have this confidential information. She spoke about the self-reinforcing wheel. Today we'll be talking about a lot of loops, working with loops, closing the loops. So this is very important. We've seen 2 different perspectives when it comes to the climate discussion, where innovations can be scaled out, a lot of opportunities exist, and where community-centered approaches are also pivotal. With this, we now move to the MasterCard Foundation Insights on Higher Education Transformation and Climate Action Portfolio. We'll be having 2 speakers from the foundation. I'll give a brief on them, and then they will take their turn to speak, one after the other. We'll start with Ashley. So Ashley Collier is a senior leader in educational transformation with a focus on advancing inclusive systems-level change. When I hear the word systems, I get energized. Those who know me know me. They say my middle name is Systems. with a focus on advancing inclusive systems level change across Africa and Canada. She currently serves as Director, Higher Education for Transformation at the MasterCard Foundation, where she leads large-scale collaboratives that strengthen universities, research ecosystems, and leadership pipelines to enable young people to drive equitable social and economic development. Ashley brings nearly a decade of experience at the foundation, having held leadership roles across the education portfolio, partnerships, youth engagement, and the Scholars Program. Ashley's work focuses on higher education and climate resilience, innovation, entrepreneurship, and policy impact. And in this milieu, she supports institutions to move beyond programs toward long-term institutional and societal transformation. Known for her systems-oriented and partnership-driven approach, Ashley works closely with universities, governments, and global partners to embed youth voice, gender equity, and inclusion into program design governance. She holds a Master's of Education and Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science from the University of Ottawa and is based in Toronto, Canada. So I will give the dossier of Married to SEC, and then Ashley will come before her. So our next speaker from the foundation is Married to SEC. She is the head of climate action at the foundation within the Pan-African programs, where she leads the foundation's climate action framework across the continent, driving the integration of climate into program platforms as a lever for economic transformation and large-scale job creation for young women and men. Marito's work advances climate-positive growth by strengthening resilience, catalyzing green innovation, and unlocking opportunities within Africa's emerging green economy in direct service of the Young Africa Work strategy. We know this is a pivotal strategy of the foundation. Previously, Marita established and led the foundation's agriculture portfolio in Senegal and in the West Africa Economic Management Unit region, designing private sector-driven programs that expanded financial inclusion and created sustainable development at scale for young people. Before joining the foundation, she worked in ESG and impact investing, usually environmental and social governance, in private equity in West Africa, and in sustainability consulting, advising companies across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. She holds a master's degree in agriculture engineering from ENSAT and in environment and social management. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ashley Collier.
Good morning, everyone. Now, I must admit that when the AAU team asked me for my bio, I did ask ChatGPT to write that for me. So you can't say that I don't leverage AI in my work. And thank you, Frederick, for reading it so beautifully. I really brought it to life. So thank you very much for that. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Wonderful to see so many familiar faces across this room. Really great to be able to spend this time, this next 4 days together. On behalf of the MasterCard Foundation, I want to welcome you to this year's convening. I first of all just want to say thank you to our hosts at the University of Ghana. Thank you, Chris and Gordon, for your leadership this year and really bringing us as a collaborative to new heights and new ambitions. So thank you so much for the year and for everyone at UG, and thank you for kicking us off today. Thank you for the AAU team. For all of your support, all of the back-end support. There's so much that goes into these convenings, so just want to say a big thank you to that team, as well as the planning committee that put everything together. So thank you so much for all of the hard work that it took to get us all here today. I also want to say a huge thank you to Elizabeth and Lindsay for kicking us off today. and for really setting the tone for what it is that we're trying to accomplish together as a collaborative, for giving us thought-provoking ideas, for giving us some recommendations and ways for us to guide our conversations that we have over the next couple of days. I really appreciate the thoughtful remarks that both of you gave. And you'll see some trends, I think, in some of these ideas and calls to action for us over the next couple of days together. This theme that we have here, from ambition to action, scaling African youth-led climate solutions, it's a really important, already sort of call to action that we have just embedded in the theme. And I think it's really critical for us to think about the backdrop of us being in here today. We're all gathered in this beautiful hotel, the Radisson Blu, today in Nairobi, but there's a lot that's happening outside in the world. And it's important for us to reflect on the moment and time that we're in. Across the continent, across Africa, climate realities are reshaping economic priorities, development pathways, and young people's futures and their aspirations for the future. As we all know, it's talked about a lot, that Africa is one of the world's most climate-sensitive geographies. The realities of climate is so stark across societies here. On average, African countries are losing between 2 to 5% of their GDP to the effects of climate change. And they're diverting up to 9% of their annual budgets just to respond to climate crises that are happening across the years. If these current trends continue, by 2030, it is estimated that over 100 million people will be exposed to droughts, floods, and extreme heat. And we know that these numbers are staggering. 100 million people, that's a staggering number. But it's not a number, it's a person. And these are people who have dreams and aspirations and who have a desire to live a good life. And the climate realities are making that more and more difficult. At the same time, this is also a moment of extraordinary opportunity. We heard that from both of our keynote speakers today. That the climate crisis is one that calls for a coordinated and incredibly ambitious response. We can't continue to do as is, any of us as our institutions or as individuals. And there is no region where that response holds a greater possibility than here in Africa. We heard about some of those assets today, again, in our keynote addresses, that we had the largest group of young people is here in Africa. There is an abundance of natural resources. There's rapidly evolving economies. Africa has everything that it needs in order to shape a different type of climate future. And this matches quite well with the MasterCard Foundation's vision. Our vision is that all people, no matter the starting point in life, have an equal chance to succeed and live a good life. We believe that access to education, financial services, skills training, and work opportunities are the recipe for young people to improve their lives and have that chance of success. However, over the past decade and even beyond, it's become increasingly evident that we cannot succeed in that vision without confronting the climate crisis head on. Climate change impacts educational outcomes, workforce participation, the ability to be an entrepreneur, livelihoods, and economic stability, particularly for young people and for communities that are most marginalized. As a result, we have placed a climate lens in all the work that we do, ensuring that's an essential consideration for all of our programs and partnerships. And my wonderful colleague Maritu will come up after me and share a little bit more about the overall vision and the work that we do as a foundation to address climate change. A few years ago, many of you may have been in this room, we convened a small group of people. It was all over Zoom because it was during COVID, so we were not able to meet in person. But we convened a small groups of individuals and asked them a simple question. Well, maybe it's not that simple, but it was one question, which is, what is the role that African universities are or should be playing in shaping climate resilient societies? There was a whole host of answers. There was a lot of great thinking that shaped the vision and the mandate of this particular collaborative. But at the end, there was sort of a single through line, which is how can institutions evolve to meet the demands of an ever-changing world and a world that is continually to be changed by climate. Various projections suggest that climate-related sectors could create over 100 million job opportunities in Africa by 2050, with around 20 to 30% of those jobs requiring advanced degrees, placing higher education institutions at the center of the solution around building talent pipelines, ensuring that their young people have the skills that they need and the leadership required to realize this potential. The partnership that is across this room between the MasterCard Foundation, Makerere University, University of Ghana, University of Cape Town, Cambridge University, is a commitment, a shared commitment to this idea, that institutions should and can play a role in advancing climate actions and building a more sustainable future. As you all know better than I, standing up here, higher education institutions are centers of knowledge, innovation, and influence. Their decisions and the decisions that you make within your institutions, they shape talent pipelines, they inform national priorities, and they contribute to how societies understand and respond to complex challenges like climate change. And this role is becoming increasingly important as climate considerations have to extend across all disciplines. It's not one area that we need to be looking at. It calls for us to embed climate across everything that we do within our institutions, all disciplines, utilizing research to drive conversations of the future, strengthening the connection between academic knowledge, climate enterprise development, and policy implementation. And to me, maybe the most important part, unlocking student potential by expanding the imagination of what is possible for the future. It also calls on all of us to have a lot of clarity and ambition about what it is that we need to do to meet the demands of our time. And that is so much of, again, from ambition to action. We need that clarity, an understanding and focus of where we're heading and how it is that we're going to get there. We also know that we cannot do this work in isolation. It's more crucial now than ever for us to be reducing silos and barriers and work even more intentionally with communities, with policymakers, with governments, and most importantly, with young people who are going to shape the future. When all of these systems move together, they create the conditions for sustained progress. And we cannot wait for others to come to us. We cannot say, oh, if we do great research, then the policymakers will come. We need to be the definers, and we need to be the ones that are designing and building together with all of the other actors in mind so that we can move beyond individual programs and really truly be a system of influence and impact. We've done so much already together. It's been a short period of time, but there's been incredible progress over these last couple of years. And I know that we have a whole session this afternoon sharing out, the progress that has been made and our ambitions for the future. But I just wanted to highlight a few because I think it's important to celebrate what we've already accomplished as we think about the ambition for the future. So it's really exciting. We've already launched a lot of academic programs. We have hundreds of young people that are already in master's programs and PhD programs. We've launched online courses. We've awarded innovation catalyst grants and research grants, workshop grants, all advancing climate and sustainability. We've also really put an emphasis on stakeholder engagement and making sure that we are speaking to young women, young people with disabilities, young people who are displaced and refugees, and ensuring that their dreams and ambitions are central to the work that we're doing in the programs that we're running. And we've also done a lot of work, and I know that Chris and Gordon shared this in the beginning, but a lot of foundational work the past couple of years to making sure that we have what we need in order for us to accelerate the impact in the next couple of years. So things like our governance structure being in place, our youth advisory committee, the theory of change that connects all of our work together, the communication strategy that we have. I know there was an entire day that was dedicated to that yesterday, and really thinking about how do we tell the narrative of what we're doing. Because in order for us to influence others, others need to know what we're doing and the impact that we're having. So I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all of those working groups. I know that it's a tremendous amount of work that has gone into building the foundation of which the rest of this work is going to stand upon. So thank you so much for everything that has already been done. And while progress, of course, has been made, achieving transformation at scale will require a sustained effort. It will require us to continue require us to think about how do we accelerate this implementation? How do we move faster and move together? So there's a few areas, I'm just going to share 4 areas that we at the Foundation are thinking about when we think about this idea of ambition to action, when we think about scale, when we think about how do we accelerate and make sure that we are being as relevant to young people as possible. The first is that we really need to focus this year on delivering our current programs with quality, speed, and agility. The challenge in front of us is vast. There's a lot of things that we could be doing, but we all have plans in place. And this, in another way of thinking about it, is a promise that we've made to young people. We've put down on paper things that we said that we were going to do, and we need to deliver those things with quality, speed, and agility. And that's really critical for this next year ahead. The second is thinking about how do we move from a series of programs and activities that are in our proposals, that are in the ideas that we have that have been, said yes to and approved, and there's funding available. But we need to move beyond just those individual activities and not see them as individual programs and activities, and really think about how do we leverage the power of this collaborative, the power of this network. That's going to take just as much intentionality and thinking as it was the original proposals that were made. We have the ability to leverage each other, and which will require focus, the values that guide our decisions, and the discipline to create the impact that will inspire others. The third, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of designing for scale. So you can't talk about the climate crisis without thinking about scale, because the issue is societal wide. So no individual program, no one set of activities is going to meet the need and the demand that the climate crisis is demanding of us. So one of the things that we think about is that scale is not synonymous for growth. It's not the same. It's not just about doing more of the same thing, putting more money behind the same programs. It's actually thinking about it completely differently and saying, how do we design for the scale of the opportunity or for the problem? I said earlier that there's a projection of 100 million green jobs in Africa by 2050. What would we have to do as a network, as a collaborative, to achieve that type of scale? If that's the size of the opportunity, what do we need to be thinking differently as universities, as those of us in philanthropy, to match that level of ambition? And lastly, I just want to make sure that it's reiterated, as it always is that designing for inclusion is imperative for all that we do. We need to think about enabling youth-led organization, rural young women, persons with disabilities, displaced people, young people that are refugees. That is core to driving systems change. You cannot build systems that are sustainable without designing for inclusion. We all must go together. So this convening, as I sort of wrap up, is an important transition moment. We're going from thinking and ideating, putting things on paper, to making real life contributions. And it is imperative for all of us to think, again, how do we move with speed and agility and with quality and meet the demands that young people are asking of us? It is so obvious, there's such a strong foundation here and a strong commitment to the ambitions that we have. And I know that there is all the potential in the world for us to deliver lasting impact for young people and for the continent. As we commence in these next 4 days of networking, learning from one another, building with one another, I just want to reiterate the commitment that the MasterCard Foundation has to this work and to this partnership. We are with you every step of the way, and we want to continue to challenge ourselves to push the boundaries of what is possible, to be ambitious, to dream of a different future, and of course to be guided by the young people that are in this room and beyond, and getting behind their dreams and aspirations. So thank you so much. I'm really excited to be spending the next 4 days with you. I have lots of foundation colleagues here as well, and hopefully we can all engage in a really meaningful way over the next 4 days and come up with ambitious plans that we are all committed to. So thank you all so much. And with that, I will ask my colleague Neritu to come up and share her remarks and give us a little bit more insight into what the MasterCard Foundation is doing at large for the climate crisis. Neritu, please.
Thank you, Ashley. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Ashley, for setting the tone on what the foundation is doing in terms of higher education and the impact on climate action. I will try throughout my short presentation to give you an overview of the Pan-African programs where I'm sitting, what we are doing in terms of climate action programming, right? This is just a continuum, a layer, more layer to the story that Ashley has just given you. Right, so next slide. All right, so our approach to climate action is rooted into our values. And the first one I want to talk about is impact. So we understand that climate change is impacting women and young people at the nexus of women and youth, and young women are our main target at the foundation. Basically, what does it mean? It means that, so there's a list of impacts that I'm sure you know, all of you know better than me. Oh, thank you. All of you know better than me. But the important aspect is that without our decisive action as a foundation, we cannot support young people to prospect economic opportunities in Africa. So that was the main message I wanted to tell you. Here it's about listening. So as a foundation, we have listened to young people. We have asked them questions about what do they feel is their value added in climate action? What is it that they need to do? And we have actually conducted a survey with partners. And what came back to this survey is that young people need actual support to elevate their voice, support in financing and access to affordable finance. And they also need support to create their own opportunities. So it means entrepreneurship. Based on the potential impact and based on our listening of young people, that's where we followed the guidance of climate positive growth. So what is it that we mean by climate positive growth? It's basically that we need to move from climate action as a defensive tool to an active participation of young people into the different climate mainstreams. So in practice, what does it mean? We want to position young people as contributors to the global green economy throughout this three-phased approach, starting with workforce development. So when I talk about workforce development, obviously in this room, you know very well what I'm talking about. But beyond university and secondary, we also want to involve green skilling for young people that are out of the school system. So vocational training, capacity building, green opportunities, thank you, for young people. The second, and I think the one aspect that you are the most interested about, is climate smart sectors and resilient systems. Starting with financial support. So I talked about entrepreneurship, but Lindsay also talked about something very important. How is it that we are supporting larger enterprises to be able to recruit young people that are skilled in green skilling and that understand what it needs to be hired by a company and to provide services in green and the climate space. Entrepreneurship is another aspect, but beyond that, capacity building. How is it that we build the capacity of young people and provide them with new opportunities? And the last aspect, and not the least important, is policy and thought leadership. How is it that we will provide young people with voice and agency so that they can be present and represented at the table where everything is discussed? We are talking about COP, but we're also talking about negotiation with stakeholders. policy support. How is it that the policy can be supported by evidence and data that is coming from these universities? All right, so I think I explained what we mean by the triple-phased approach. Let's focus a bit more on the sectors we are touching at. So since 2019, the foundation has invested close to $1 billion in climate action in different programming. From agroforestry and different aspects of agriculture and entrepreneurship. So this program is named GRACE. It's Growing Resilience to Climate Action and Youth Empowerment. It's directly targeting 1.2 million young people. This program is this year in the 3rd year of implementation and have already reached more than half of the targets. It's in partnership with One Acre Fund, and we are providing young people with opportunities of entrepreneurship in tree planting. We are also introducing in this program carbon offsetting and carbon crediting based on tree planting for additional revenue for young people in the agroforestry. And this year, we are planning to actually be able to collect the data and understand exactly how much young people are getting extra revenue from these activities, so that we can build a model for young people in the future to leverage carbon crediting as an increase of revenue. Next program is EWAS. It's about productive use of energy. So indeed, our framework is around climate adaptation and resilience. I'm sure you have understood it very well. However, we will leverage opportunities within climate mitigation for young people. And that's why we invested in this program with GIAP. Started in April 2024, so we also have more or less 2 years of implementation, and we have already reached more than 50% of the targets. So this means that young people are motivated by these sectors. They are interested. They are able to pick up the technology, and when we provide them with green skilling, capacity building, and financial inclusion, they are able to strive and create opportunities for themselves and for their community. Next program is Green Rise Africa. So we talked about how we layer the different levels of SMEs, and this program is an excellent example. It has been launched at the beginning of this year, 2026, and we have already reaching in more than 15 countries young people at smallholder farmer level. So it has 4 layers, the first one being supporting smallholder farmers and innovators. The second layer is a fellowship, which we can look at opportunities for collaboration on this fellowship. It's in partnership with Acumen. It's a green fellowship, specially designed and co-created with the Mastercard Foundation. And we are also building and accelerating enterprises from young people. So we are talking about small enterprises, 3 to 4 employees at that level. And the last layer is the scale layer, where we support enterprises that are a bit stronger. We're talking about anywhere between 15 and 30 employees, and also the revenue is staggered. So green entrepreneurship, impact enterprises, support capacity building grants, but also support to find funding and investment in the future. And to finish, more resilience for young people, especially smallholder farmers, is insurance. This program has also been launched this year, so we don't yet have the feedback on impact and model that is really working, but we are aiming at supporting inclusive insurance solutions for young people. Helping them adopt insurance to credit, so moving from insurance to credit and be able to access affordable loans, to be able to access working capital for their enterprises. And to finish, we also work on regulation, product support, climate system, market convening, government support, etc. So now let's talk about pipeline. I'll go a bit faster on this. For the pipeline, we are looking at 3 programs that will be finalized. The co-creation will be finalized this year to be started next year. The first one being circular economy, providing young people with entrepreneurship solutions in circular economy. We're looking at agri-food system, e-waste, textile, and plastic. And for each, we have identified a target country, which are Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria. The next pipeline project is on climate smart agriculture. So we are looking at climate smart seed, drought tolerant, and I'm sure that on this aspect there are opportunities to collaborate with the universities, mechanization, support for technology, digitalization, digital climate information, and to finish post-harvest loss management. And to finish, advancing Africa's blue economy is one of our targets for this year, to support young people in the blue economy, fisheries, but also management of blue entrepreneurship. We are looking at work opportunities, post-harvest loss processing in the blue economy, etc. So all opportunities related to fisheries, blue economy in coastal areas of Africa. All right, so to finish, we have an important aspect on policy and thought leadership. How is it that we can bring data and innovation to our programming to be really intentional on identifying the key elements that will provide opportunities for young people in the different aspects we talked about. We're also looking at more programming for 2027, but for now, we will focus on those aspects that I mentioned. We are looking at policy level support, country level, but also regional and continental-wide level. So for example, it would be, how is it that the African Union Circular Economy Action Plan can be translated into opportunities for young people, concrete opportunities for young people? Because for now, it's an action plan that is theoretical and sitting somewhere. And to finish, I talked about it, but it's always important, youth voice and agency. How is it that young people can be the real agent of change for Africa? All right, so that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Someone has gifted me a phone, so I'll take it along. We are far behind time, and we want to move. Yes. We want to move straight to the next session, where the Backbone organization will be reflecting on our journey from Accra and how we can shape the vision and roadmap for the collaborative. To do us the honors, we have a distinguished personality, Professor Olusola Bandele Oyewole, Secretary General of the Association of African Universities. Professor Olusola Bandele Oyewole is the Secretary General of the AAU, serving a second term till 2029. Since assuming office in 2021, he has strengthened AAU's leadership in African higher education through expanded membership, deeper institutional engagement, and advancement of digital transformation and capacity building. Professor Oyewole provides strategic leadership for key partnerships with organizations such as the African Union, the European Union, and World Bank, and also champions initiatives across the Africa Research Innovation and Development Network, AFRID. This is a digital platform of more than 2,000 universities on the African continent. Professor Oyelole's work has enhanced AU's global visibility and strengthened its role in research and policy influence. Professor Oyelole brings over 40 years of experience in higher education leadership and previously served as Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria. Professor Oyelole has provided advisory support to organizations such as UNESCO, OECD, and the African Union Commission. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Professor Olusola Bandele Oyewole.
Good morning, everyone. Karibu. Your Excellencies, distinguished partners, representatives of universities in the African Climate Collaborative, our youth delegates, I'm happy that you are here, colleagues and friends. Let me start by, first of all, appreciating all the speakers that have gone before me this morning. I don't know how you feel, but I want to let you know how I feel. The moment we spent together this morning has been a moment of reflections. They've also been moments of challenge to each one of us, and probably a moment of empowerment. One thing came clear to me from all the conversations we've had so far. Universities in Africa need a change. We cannot continue with the way we've been going before. Our universities should be the lead agent for change in our continent. We have special responsibilities as universities. One of the things we do in this particular meeting today, our universities need to build a new breed of young people. We should never shy away from this responsibility. And it comes upon me that for us, as the Association of African Universities, we have some great responsibilities at hand. And I can assure you that our organization, the AAU, we are committed to playing this very important role that has been entrusted on us. So today is really a great honor for me to address us on behalf of the Association of African Universities as we reflect on our growing partnership with the MasterCard Foundation since the AAU commenced its role as the backbone of the African Climate Collaborative last year. Really, when I came into office, one of the questions that comes to my mind is that why has it been that for so many years, AAU has not been working with the MasterCard? But I'm glad that today we have started a mutually beneficial learning experience and journey with the MasterCard. I wish to begin by expressing our deep appreciation for this strong collaboration and partnership between AAU and the MasterCard Foundation. This partnership reflects a shared vision for an Africa where higher education, research, and innovation drives inclusive growth, empower our young people, and foster sustainable development in the African continent. It is also a partnership grounded in mutual respect, trust, and commitment to an African-led solution. Our collaboration, particularly through the initiatives such as the African Climate Collaborative, has demonstrated that the catalytic role universities play in addressing Africa's most pressing challenges is very important. Through this partnership, we have strengthened research ecosystems, empowered young scholars, promoted cross-institutional collaboration, and supported innovations aimed at climate resilience and sustainable livelihood. These achievements have led to a strong foundation upon which we can build an even more ambitious and transformative agenda. I'm happy that all of us present here, we are happier today more than we were when we met in Accra last year. We are sure that the road ahead is great, and we are highly committed to making impact upon the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular moment is particularly significant for us at AAU because AAU has recently been designated as the lead institution for the Higher Education Research and Innovation Cluster under the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, CESA 2026 to 2035 of the African Union. So we stand to represent African Union Commission on issues connected with higher education in the continent. This designation is both an honor and a responsibility. It recognizes the AU continental convening power and long-standing experiences in coordinating higher education institutions and stakeholders across Africa, just as we are doing here today. It also entrusts us with providing strategic leadership, coordination, and technical guidance to ensure that higher education, research, and innovation becomes central driver of Africa's transformation. The HERI cluster is envisioned as a collaborative platform bringing together member states, universities, research networks, development partners, industry, and civil society to align efforts, mobilize resources, and monitor progress towards shared continental priorities. We invite the Foundation to partner with the AAU to accelerate the implementation of the Higher Education Research and Innovation Cluster under Africa's Union Continental Education Strategy 2026 to 2035, while advancing our proposed transformative Women in Higher Education Leadership in Africa initiative. I believe that MasterCard will continue to find AAU as a very worthy partner. We are highly committed and we are ready to deliver on any trust that we give you. The rationale for the HERI cluster is very clear. Higher education, research, and innovation are critical enablers of sustainable development, economic competitiveness, technological advancement, and social inclusion across Africa. They are essential for addressing the challenges related to climate change, public health, food security, industrialization, and youth empowerment. As Africa's population continues to grow, with a large youth demographic, strengthening higher education system is very, very vital for equipping graduates with the competencies needed in a rapidly evolving global economy. The higher education cluster therefore seeks to harmonize policies, enhance collaborations, strengthen research capacity to promote innovation ecosystem, and support digital transformation while advancing equity and inclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, in this context, our partnership with the MasterCard Foundation becomes even more strategic, more than ever before. The Foundation's commitment to advancing education, youth empowerment, and inclusive development aligns closely with the objectives of the Higher Education Research Innovation Cluster, which we are leading at the African Union Commission. There are several areas where this partnership can significantly accelerate implementation. First, the Foundation can support the strengthening of research capacity across the continent. This includes investment in doctoral and postdoctoral training, support for continental research networks, development of shared infrastructure and promotion of collaborative research addressing Africa's development priorities. Such support will enhance Africa's ability to generate context-specific knowledge and drive innovation-led growth, which is something that we need at such a time as we are in our development. Secondly, digital transformation remains a cornerstone of the higher education research and innovation agenda. The Mastercard Foundation can play a vital role in supporting digital learning platforms, virtual mobility programs, data-driven decision-making systems, and capacity building in emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and advanced analytics. These interventions will help African universities expand access, improve quality, and enhance collaboration across borders. And I can assure you, AAU is available to champion this. Thirdly, innovation ecosystem requires deliberate investment. By supporting university-based innovation hubs, entrepreneurship programs, and university-industry partnership, the foundation can help us to translate research into practical solutions. This will strengthen the link between knowledge generation and economic transformation, ensuring that universities contribute directly to job creation and sustainable development. I'm looking forward to more of this in the course of our conversation in the next few days. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that our partnership with the Mastercard Foundation offer an opportunity to significantly scale up this initiative. And I'm looking forward to our further conversation and to see what we can do. Beyond the African Climate Collaborative, the AAU envisions a structured partnership framework with the Mastercard Foundation to support both the Higher Education Cluster and the Women in Higher Education Leadership Initiative. The impact of strengthening our partnership will be very far-reaching. It will lead to stronger and more coordinated higher education systems, enhanced research collaborations, expanded innovation ecosystem, and increased participation of women in leadership. Yesterday, we were discussing about a development in Africa now. Many women are now coming up into leadership positions in African universities. We need to challenge our younger women to also aspire and get to this position. Ladies and gentlemen, as we discuss together, listen to each other in the next 2 or 3 days, let us deepen this partnership. Let us continue to mobilize resources and act with urgency and ambition. Together, we can build a future where African universities lead innovation, where women occupy leadership positions across the continent, and where higher education drives sustainable and inclusive development. May the Africa Climate Collaborative be the seeds that grow into a forest of climate-smart universities, a continental research canopy, innovation universities that are involved in this collaborative today. I can see a future where more universities will want to connect to the vision that have been generated through this collaborative. I'm looking at a future where the hope expressed by our first speaker will be achieved. I hope that all of us will connect to this vision. Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for our Secretary General. We have a few presents for keynote speakers. First, we call on Ashley Collier to come and present a bouquet on our behalf. to Elizabeth Watuti. Thank you, Ashley. That'll be, thank you. Yeah. Want to balance the equation with a male. Yes, we call on our distinguished Secretary General, Professor Olusola Bandelewule, to do this presentation on our behalf, to Lindsay Handler. Yeah, sure. Show the flower. Let them see the bouquet. Yes, let them see it. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have made a slight adjustment to the program. We are agile, so we are responding to the delays in time. We want to now take the liberty of going for the group photo and tea break. And then when we come back, we'll take the session on connecting the dots. Then after, we'll come to the panel discussion led by Professor Vera. So we want to go out now for the group photo. Is it here? Okay. Even more. Okay. So please. Okay. Yes. So can we come upstage? Yes, for the group photo, please. So this will be a fitting background, very apt. Yes. Maybe you can go and put it somewhere.